right, folks, we are back here on WLTH 1370 AM. That's 92.7 in the FM dial. This is Straight Out of the Cannon with me, Scott Cannon. Here, it is 6:41 in the PM on July the 11th. Yes, 7/11. 7/11, even backdoor Little Joe. If you know, you know. 2025. The future is here. The future is now. And one man whose future looks a little bit better than it did a few weeks ago is probably Sean Diddy Combs, whose trial concluded on July 2nd with the jury delivering a mixed verdict. After 7 weeks of testimony, he was acquitted on the most serious charges: racketeering, conspiracy, and 2 counts of sex trafficking by force, fraud, and coercion, which could have carried life sentences. He was found guilty on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. We're going to talk about that. We're definitely going to talk about that. And related to his ex-girlfriend, Cassandra Cassie Ventura, and another woman referred to as Jane. Most people think that it is Daphne Joy, who is the baby mama of a fellow rapper 50 Cent. 50. But that's just a speculation. These charges carry a maximum sentence of 10 years each. Those sentencing guidelines suggest that usually you'll get about 4 or 5 years with credit for roughly 10 months. He has already served since his arrest in September 2024. Now, this trial centered on allegations that Combs ran a criminal enterprise involving his employees to facilitate crimes, including sex trafficking and drug-filled orgies called freak-offs. The prosecutors presented 34 witnesses, including Cassie and Jane, if that is her real name, which it isn't, who described instances of physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. Though the defense argued that these encounters were consensual, key evidence included a 2016 hotel security video showing Combs assaulting this Cassie, which his defense acknowledged as domestic violence, which it was, and his severely acting his that weirdo striking to himself. I do was indeed a sex trafficker, just like I believe it's probable that Jeffrey Epstein was a sex trafficker. Many people have posited that Diddy was the black Jeffrey Epstein. So, do you think it's not significant that both of these cases were wrapped up in the same week? With the end of both cases being essentially nothing to see here, folks. Clear the area, nothing to see. These people are just sex trafficking to themselves. That's just it. I mean, come on. My theory is that when they raided Puffy's multiple houses, they were not going to do that for a guy who just likes to have freak-offs with his girlfriend. It was said that his house was wired up with cameras everywhere and that he had videotapes of everybody doing everything. People tend to forget that when this trial first started, we were hearing about celebrities, politicians, all these people who are going to be exposed on those Diddy tapes. But now they give us the most vanilla case possible. Even one of the jurors that did an interview said that the freak-off tapes that they watched in court were relatively tame. It was just people rubbing baby oil on each other. And so what was this case really about? They had to get those tapes from Diddy. They had to get those tapes off Diddy. Whatever tapes he had of politicians, whatever tapes he had of wealthy business people, celebrities, they had to get those tapes off of Diddy. They needed a reason to raid his house. Multiple residences. Really? When have you ever seen somebody have multiple houses raided over domestic violence? When have you ever seen that? What we saw with Diddy is that they were putting him in his place. Okay? This man had too much. Not to say Diddy's not a scumbag. Look, I'm a Tupac stan. If you listen to the show, you know I am a Tupac stan. Okay? I have never liked Diddy. I will never like Diddy. Anybody knows anything about hip hop will know why I don't like Diddy. Okay? There's a reason people called him the devil. People have called him the devil in hip hop for the last 25 years. Virtually all of his former artists either end up broke, dead, or in jail. All of them just about. Broke, dead, or in jail. Or some combination of all of them. Go broke, then die in jail. Or die after going to jail. I mean, like Black Rob. Good God. One of his former artists, a guy named Mark Curry, not the actor Mark Curry, not the comedian, but the rapper Mark Curry, actually wrote a book called Dancing with the Devil about his life with Diddy. So we know Diddy has some sins, some real sins, everybody. He's a very flawed individual. Nobody here is saying that Diddy is an innocent man. He is definitely not. But this case that they brought against him was complete nonsense. It really was. They overcharged him, so I guess they could get the ability to be able to raid his house and get all those tapes and to be able to shut him up about what he knows about the people he knows. They were putting him in his place. Now, let's look at one of these charges that they convicted Diddy on. Tell me if this doesn't sound like some nonsense. The Mann Act. The Mann Act. Now, it's called the Mann Act because it was named after Congressman James Robert Mann of Illinois. But you want to know what its original name was? The White Slave Traffic Act of 1910. Yeah, you heard that right. The White Slave Traffic Act of 1910. In its original form, the act made it a felony to engage in interstate or foreign commerce transport of any woman or girl for the purpose of prostitution or debauchery. So if you take any woman across state lines to, say, have sex with her, or say you guys are traveling across the country and y'all get freaky, technically you're violating the Mann Act. It is very, very, very vague, and it was done that way on purpose. It was written that way on purpose. Its primary stated intent was to address prostitution, immorality, and human trafficking, particularly where trafficking was for the purposes of prostitution. It purposely used ambiguous language about immorality. It was used specifically to criminalize even consensual sexual behavior between adults. Let me read that again. It was used to criminalize consensual sexual acts between adults. So if I get in the car right now with my girl and we go to Chicago and get freaky, I'm violating the Mann Act. If they just want to charge me with that. Now, you go back 100 years, the law was used to prosecute unlawful premarital, extramarital, and here's the key word, interracial relationships. Interracial relationships. The penalties would be applied to men whether the woman's consent was involved or not. And if she consented, the woman could be considered an accessory to the offense. Now, who was the most famous person convicted under the Mann Act? The very first black heavyweight champion of the world. His name was Jack Johnson. For those who don't know, Jack Johnson was a modern athlete in 1908. He had gold teeth. He drove fancy cars. He wore lots of jewelry. And more importantly, he teed off white people immensely, which was his main crime. He was the first black heavyweight champion because they would not let other black people get an opportunity to be heavyweight champion. At that point, the heavyweight champion was the biggest, highest paid position in all of sports. The heavyweight champion was essentially the king of sports. They could not let a black man be the king of sports in 1908. Jack Johnson infuriated white America so much that when he would win fights over white contenders, knock them out, beat them down, they would go to the nearest black neighborhood and burn it to the ground and lynch as many black people as they can find. And so the Mann Act came about because they knew that Jack Johnson loved to cavort with women, particularly white women, some of whom he met while fighting at his fight. So like he had like white groupies. He was the richest man in sports, one of the richest men in the country at that point in 1908. And so he had groupies like every rapper, rock star, athlete has in the 120 years since. In 1912, he was prosecuted and later convicted for transporting women across state lines for immoral purposes. They leave it vague on purpose. The whole point of the Mann Act isn't even to say you're doing something illegal, just that you're doing something immoral. And in their minds, being in an interracial relationship was immoral. He was traveling with his white girlfriend, Lucille Cameron, who he refused to cooperate with, and they married soon after. So this woman he was with, she wasn't some random prostitute. She eventually became his wife. So that's the story of the Mann Act. That's what they convicted Diddy of. Crossing state lines with women and having immoral relations with them. This is America. It's a free country. Consenting adults are allowed to get freaky if they want to get freaky. And much of the narrative of this case has been to solely present Cassie as a victim of this monster, Diddy, when the more evidence comes out, shows that Cassie herself was threatening people, blackmailing people herself. They don't tell you that Cassie was one of the main tormentors of Kim Porter, who was Diddy's real love, who had most of his children that Cassie used to call Kim Porter and taunt her and harass her. They didn't tell you that Cassie was one of the main ones threatening the sex workers. And they also didn't tell you that Cassie, according to one of the sex workers, lied on the stand. But one of these sex workers now, male sex workers, a man named Clayton Howard, has come forward to talk about exactly that. Cassie actually, in this man's own words, sexually assaulted him and threatened him and lied to him and cheated him and coerced him. I'll let him tell it.
So good morning. I am Dave, the man who has just sued Cassandra Ventura for damages involved in the Sean Combs sex trafficking trial. And I'm looking through social media and I see a lot of the women out there, particularly black women like myself, who choose to victim shame me and try to do everything they can to discredit me, because the truth is that the loss of the Sean Combs trial was a loss to the Me Too movement and to hating women like the women who are trying to insult me. So let me tell you something, you women out there who would like to insult me. This is my story. I was paid by Cassie, Cassandra Ventura, for 8 years to be her male provider. I didn't have to be the best looking guy. I was the best in bed. And because I was the best in bed, guess what? I was given this arrangement. I was coerced. I was drugged. I was manipulated with promises of money and gifts for over a period of 8 years to continue to be this woman's provider at her expense and at the expense of Diddy. Now, at the time, legally, I didn't know my rights as well as I do now. I didn't create this conflict with Cassandra Ventura. She created it with me. She's the one who decided to bring up things that happened over 10 to 15 years ago to hold Sean Combs accountable for what was a partial truth. She's the person who introduced me to the U.S. Attorney's Office. She's the person who told the U.S. Attorney's Office about our relationship. So in essence, those out there who want to hate on me, who want to say that I'm attacking Cassie, you should realize the truth, that Cassandra Ventura, your idol, did this to herself. She exposed herself to liability when she got on the stand and decided to mention me as the male escort who was with her when she overdosed and Diddy made her have sex with him. That was a lie, people. Cassie had just woke up from sleeping 8 hours. Myself and Sean Combs were exhausted. We wanted to go home. Cassie's the one who forced that sexual encounter. People, she tells you that Sean Combs made her have sex on her menstrual cycle. I can't speak for anyone else but myself. But I know the one time that did happen, that Sean Combs was not responsible for that Cassie, in a drunken, intoxicated, hormonally imbalanced state due to her period, manipulated and forced herself on me during her menstrual cycle. And what I mean by that is I had no knowledge she was on her menstrual cycle because the room was completely dark. She manipulated the room. She manipulated the environment to get what she wanted, and then she totally got up like I was the one who should have been grateful. You're on your period. That's disgusting, and I deserved more respect than that. As a man, if I had laid down with a woman and forced myself on her and orgasmed in her and she got up and it was leaking out of her, guess what? I would have raped her. So by statute, by case law definition, Cassandra Ventura sexually assaulted me. I'm not looking to destroy Cassie. I've given Cassie more than a year to settle this before things got out of control. The problem is she's being supported by women like you who would choose to attack male victims instead of accept the truth, which is that a woman could have lied to get revenge on the ex-boyfriend who broke her heart and hurt her. It happens, people. They say hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, and that's true. If you hurt some women, they will do everything in their power. If you hurt some men, they'll do everything in their power to hurt you. But I want to end this by saying this. Cassie did this to herself. They say he who sets out on a course of revenge should dig 2 graves. People, Cassie dug the grave that is Clayton Howard herself. Cassie got on the stand trying to destroy Diddy. She should have took her $20-30 million and walked into the sunset, people. She should have never gotten on the stand and created further liability for herself by telling more of the lie that she created to get this man sent to prison for his life. She made a mistake when she got on the stand, people. She made a mistake when she got on the stand and lied about the events with Clayton Howard. Clayton Howard is a victim of Cassandra Ventura. Clayton Howard didn't ask to be in a relationship with Cassandra Ventura while she was sleeping with numerous men per week. I get it. You all think I was a nasty male prostitute sleeping with women, all different women all the time. It actually didn't work like that. To have certain types of people that can pay you that well, what you really have to do is you have to focus on people who are affluent. And affluent people don't engage in activities like that. So I might have had a client once a month. The truth is I was only a male escort for 2 years. I continued in the profession because Cassie and Diddy continued to pay me very well, and I was an ex-con. I needed money. Yes, I was trapped in a situation. I'll admit that. I didn't know what to do. But does that mean I should be victim shamed because the same thing that happened to women all the time happened to me as a man? No. And for those women out there, for you black women who choose to shame me as a black man for telling my truth, you should be ashamed of yourself. That's really pretty much all I have to say. You will not see me too much in the media. I don't need the public to believe me. I just need a jury of my peers and 12 people to believe me in a court. And thanks to the testimony of Cassie during the trial of Sean Combs, I have that. Thank you for watching. Stop victim shaming. Thank you.
Wow. Wow. They say men can't be victims. A lot of people don't believe men can be victims. We are in 2025, and people still believe that men cannot be coerced, men cannot be victims, and that's just not true. I'm sorry. Men can indeed be victims. And, you know, just like we talked about in the Jeffrey Epstein case, you know, we need to respect victims, whether they are male victims or they are female victims. We need to respect victims regardless of what they are, male or female. All right, folks, it's 7:05, so it's time for some happy happies. We'll be right back after these.